So I want to tell you a story about some of my work experience. I had never driven a car in my life. I was 17 years old. I did kind of get myself in a little bit of trouble. I got into a car accident with a boyfriend's car, smashed it up pretty bad, broke my leg. Um, I wasn't driving, but I did take the keys and give them to a friend who was driving, and it was a little bit, and then, it was it was made public, so it was a little bit embarrassing. However, that Christmas, I got engaged to the fella whose car I I smashed while I was in the accident with. Obviously, he cared enough about me to buy me a ring. It was a beautiful ring. It was like three, six. I think it had 12 sapphires in it. It was beautiful, a beautiful engagement ring. Oh, the things we do when we're young and foolish. Oh my God. Oh my God. I gave that ring to my cousin. I gave it. When I ended that relationship and I went off to the military at 17, I had heard that he had cheated on me, and so I gave that ring to a cousin of mine who I was close to. Yeah, I gave it. So I don't know what she did with it, but I did give it to her. Just like, here, take it. I want it. Yeah. So I went to the military. I had never driven. I thought when you did the, low lights and highlights that you had to turn the lights off. And that's what I was doing that night in the car, practicing my driving. Turn the lights on, put them on, turn them off, put them on. So my friend decided they could drive. They knew how to drive. So they took the keys and they were driving. We got in an accident. We got in a head-on collision. Yeah, head-on collision. It was horrible. It was horrible. The car was smashed. The other person's car was smashed. We met at the top of a hill, and they call the hill Heartbreak Hill. It's no bloody wonder why. So, anyway, we all had to deal with our health issues after that car accident. And as time went on, I went to the military, right? Because this happened just before I went to the military. I had a broken leg 6 months before I went to the military and just healed. And I went to basic training and I made it through boot camp. Yeah, with a newly healed broken leg. That's one for the books. So, through my military career, I learned how to drive many vehicles. I had truck tank refuelers, I refueled aircraft, I did snow plowing on an airport runway. I learned how to do the communication with the tower, all that stuff. These are all things that I learned, right? Right. I wanted to go on holidays. I wanted to go on leave. I wanted to go home to visit people I knew. I wanted to go back, right? And I was in BC at the time. So I want to come back to Ontario for a visit. But I want to save some money. So there was a company, a hydro company, who bought a cherry picker. Do you know what a cherry picker is? Those big tower trucks with the crane that lifts up. But this was a massive one. It was the old one, old fashioned. I can't believe I did this. I can't believe I did this. Now think about this. I was in Chilliwack, BC. No, I wasn't. That's a lie. That's a lie. I was in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Yeah. BC was when I was driving the office for officer training, but I was in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and the company there was an auction, and a hydro company, bought this old cherry picker from this auction, and they wanted to transport it the most economical way back to Ontario, to a place called Thunder Bay. Yeah, no, not Thunder Bay. Whitefish Falls. I think it's just beside Thunder Bay. Okay. Now don't forget, I was only 18. So they were looking for someone to drive this cherry picker back to Ontario. So he asked me. And I thought, shit, yeah, I could. Like that's a dream. I didn't realize how far this Whitefish Falls place was from where I wanted to go in Ontario. I didn't know it was quite a piece. I had no idea. No freaking idea. I was gullible for anything. Anyway, they were going to pay the gas, and all I'd have to do is drive, and it was drivable. It was work, and it was a thought. So I drove a cherry picker with one of those tower lifts on it, and it's a hydraulic lift, and it was a big, the old fashioned one. I'll see if I can find a picture of the old type of cherry picker it was. But I drove that from Winnipeg, Manitoba, all the way to Ontario, to a place called Whitefish Falls up by Thunder Bay. Okay, so, and I had to drive it straight through, right? I drove like the whole time. I didn't stop for a pee or nothing. I just drove. I didn't even eat. I just drove, right? But I get to close to Thunder Bay or close to Whitefish Falls, and the cherry picker starts to spurt, starts to make noise, starts to kind of like thug, right? And don't forget, there's hills like this and down and up and down and around and like, you know what I mean? So I had to stop and it was nighttime. There's no motels. So I'm driving down this highway. I'm thinking, Jesus, what am I going to do if the cherry picker breaks down? I don't have access to a phone. What am I going to do? Right? So, Jesus, the things I did. I just can't believe I did this. So, have you ever seen the movie, I think it's Deliverance. I think it's Deliverance. I think it was Deliverance. Anyway, it was scarier than hell. So I had to stop. I finally found a motel, right? One of those kind of, those scary, eerie motels that you see in those scary movies where people get murdered or raped or like, kidnapped, right? One of those motels. Damn, I hope the owner's not watching this. Anyway, so it was off the road a little bit. Well, not off the road, but like, you had to pull into this driveway. And so I went. I got a room. And then I had to phone the people um, that owned the cherry picker and say, listen, I need you to send a tow truck from Thunder Bay to where I am, just outside Whitefish Falls, and, see what's wrong with this vehicle in order for me to drive it there. Right? They said, well, we can't do that in the morning until the morning. So I thought, well, I'm going to have to sleep. So I need sleep, right? So I rented a room. I had all my military ID on me. I'm such an idiot. I'm just so gullible sometimes, like I'm telling you. So I took all my ID, my military ID, and I put it on the stand beside the dresser. Like you open up and the bed's right there, right? It's just a tiny little cubicle. And nobody's going to break in because like, I'll prop the door and so I put my ID on the dresser, on that little nightstand, and I crashed. I was exhausted. So the next morning I wake up, I turn my alarm on, I wake up to my alarm. I look over I'm just glad they left the keys. They didn't steal the keys. I think I slept with the keys, but freaking ID is gone. Like, I don't know what I was thinking. I left it on the nightstand. I wake up in the morning, it's gone. So I had to drive all that way with no driver's license, no military ID, no military license. They took everything, right? So talk about identity theft, like fuddles. Yeah, fuddles. So I get there. I get up. They came. They fixed the cherry picker, and then I had to drive the cherry picker to Whitefish Falls. So they left, and I drove the cherry picker to Whitefish Falls. And they came. I took it right to the warehouse wherever they were. It was like a big factory, and I took it there, and that was it. And then I was, basically done. I was done, and I got my little stipend paycheck, and it wasn't a lot. It wasn't a lot because I got a free ride. Right? So they didn't take it as having to pay me a lot. So I didn't make a lot of money on that trip. Stupidity, because I could have made a shitload. But they picked it up, and then I was left to my own devices. And I thought, well, I'll just get a bus. There's no buses. I'll hitchhike. I'm going to hitchhike from Whitefish Falls to Pembroke, Ontario. Check it out on the map. Go check it out on the map. Yeah. And I drove from Winnipeg to Ontario. Okay. Just remember that. Okay. So I think, how in the hell am I going to get home? I can't spend all the money I have because I have to get back. So I hitchhiked. I was a larger girl. I was a larger girl. I mean, if I can, I'll see if I can post a picture, but I doubt it. But I was a larger girl, so I wasn't really scared. I could protect myself, and I was pretty good with the fisticuffs. You know, I was able to handle myself in whatever scenario at that time. At that time, yeah. So I started to hitchhike, and there was this lovely couple, a man and woman, and their friend, their sister, aunt, or whatever, and her husband, and they picked me up in this vehicle. I think it was a van, and they insisted that I went to their place, and me, I believed everything. I was so gullible. And they said, "Well, come and you stay at our place for the night. We'll put you on a bus tomorrow to go back to where you're going, Ontario." Anyway, I did. I slept like a baby, and they treated me like a queen. I got a big breakfast, and there was nothing bad, nothing negative at all. It was all on board, right? An older couple. Now, I often think about them. I can't remember their name, but so after that, then they drove me to the bus depot, and I got the bus, and I ended up getting to where I needed to go and to see my friends. So, and I was on vacation for, I think it was 2 weeks. I took leave for 2 weeks. So I was okay because I had lots of time to get back, and I was flying back to base. Okay, I wasn't going to take the bus or hitchhike. I was going to fly back, and I did that. It all went well. Had a wonderful vacation, and I went back, but I drove at like I drove a cherry picker, a hydro truck, one of those big old fashioned hydro trucks, all the way from Winnipeg, Manitoba to Ontario, Canada, on the back roads, like seriously, the TransCanada. Some of those roads go up like this and down like this, right? So, and I did that. I did that. It was a massive truck. I had to go through tunnels and stuff, and I was thinking, Jesus, I don't even know, like, if the height of this thing is big enough. Like, am I going to fit through? Am I, you know what I mean? Like, there were so many things that I didn't think out, but I had this sense of adventure, and I had no fear. I had no fear. I had no fear. I had had so many things happen in my life that this would just be another one, right? But when I think about it, I laugh about it now, but at the time I was bloody terrified. I was terrified. But think about it, right? Look at it this way. Look at the experience I had. Look at the adventure I had. Look at the strength I had, the perseverance, the determination. Yeah, I did that on my own. I did. I really, truthfully did. So, you know, and I wasn't shy about hitchhiking. Back in the day, none of us were. None of us were. Me and a girlfriend of mine used to hitchhike all the time at like the age of 14. We would hitchhike up to Renfrew and go to a disco and go dancing when we weren't even supposed to be in there. Do you know what I mean? We did a lot of stuff back in the day. We did a lot of stuff. So it's just, I like to remember those things, but I like to document them because those are things that I did that I never told anybody. I never told anybody because nobody cared. Nobody cared. They would say, "Oh, you were in the military." Yeah, I was in the military. How long were you in for? And we would discuss it on that. But they didn't want to know the things I dealt with, the things I went through. They didn't want to know that. They weren't interested. It wasn't their adventure. It was mine. And to me, it was an adventure. To them, it may be boring, right? So this is my way of documenting the things that I've done. Like, I'll give you the example. I had an older half sibling. He had a pretty good, pretty lucrative job. He was living well, and I was living on a base, and he lived past where the base was that I was posted to. And I hitchhiked home because I didn't have the money for a bus. I didn't have a car, and I wanted to see my friends and other people. Anyway, so I hitchhiked home. And then coming back was a whole different thing. Uh, my authority figure said, "Well, why don't you get him to your half sibling to drop you off? Like he's going right by there, right?" Yeah, never again. I learned my lesson, okay? When they said drop you off, I thought they meant drop you off on the base, at the base, right there, right? I didn't know that they meant at the crossroads, okay? That was like 20 miles away from where the base was, in the bush, in the country, where there was no cars, no, like literally it was a crunchy road that my half sibling dropped me off at. There was a T junction, right? And he was going straight and I was going to the right. And I would go down to the right about 20 miles, maybe even longer, because it was about, I don't know, it was about an hour, half an hour to an hour. Anyway, uh, I remember thinking, you're not gonna, you're not gonna drop me off there, like here in the bush, like in the backwoods. This couldn't be possible. But this half sibling was very authoritarian and very, um, it's a word, authoritarian is a good word. That's a good word. And now I know they were an asshole. Yeah, yeah. Because you know what they did? They pulled over to the side of the road and they literally told me to be safe. Yeah. And literally told me to get out of the car on the side of the road in the back 40, right? I didn't even know where the hell to go. I had to say to him, I said, which way do I go? Do I go this way? Do I just go straight? Yeah. And they just left me there. Just left me there and went on their way. Yeah. It was like no, never mind. It's like whatever. Let's drop you off and there you go. Be on your way. Yeah. Yeah. That's the dynamic that I had growing up as a young woman. That's the dynamic I had. And so now when people say to me, do you have family? Shit, no. No. I was an only child. I was an only child. Yeah. Yeah. Mentally, physically, verbally, financially, emotionally, psychologically, I was an only child. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. Because I don't got to answer to their maker. They do. So I've done a lot of independent things in my life, and nowadays I don't think I'd be so quick to do it because nowadays things have changed a lot. The dynamic in the world it's changed vehemently, vehemently. I mean, I went for a walk as a 65-year-old woman. I went for a walk and I was basically accosted because somebody wanted a cigarette, and I don't smoke anymore. I haven't smoked for like 8 years, and this person was insistent that they wanted a cigarette. But I tell you, they picked on the wrong little old woman, right? They picked on the wrong little old lady this time. And I'm just horrified at the way things have changed in the world today. I don't feel I don't feel brave anymore. I don't feel independent. I don't feel that sense of perseverance and determination at this point in time. Yeah, I'm determined to stay alive until the good Lord takes me and to make sure that I'm doing it in a healthy way. But I wouldn't be hitchhiking. Unless if it was something with my kids and my kids needed me and I needed to get there and I had no transportation, hell, I'd run, I'd swim, right? I'd hitchhike. Yeah. But just for the simple reason of going to visit an area where perhaps I was raised or grew up, right? I wouldn't do it again. I wouldn't do it again. Yeah. And I do talk to a few of my relatives, not many, two, a few of my extended family. And they feel the same way I do. They feel the same way I do. Like, why would I go back there? Why would I go visit there? Why would I go visit there? They treated me like shit when I was there. Why would I go back, right? So, yeah, so just, yeah, this was one of the memories, and it's a funny memory. It's a funny memory. I think I don't think about it and say, "Oh, I hate that person for dropping me off." I think they were just being who they were. That's all they were. They were just being who they were. And they had other important things that they wanted to do, and so I was in the way, and so they dropped me off on the side of the road in the middle of the bush somewhere. Yeah. So, yeah, so I'll tell you, if you do tell someone you're going to drop them off, try to drop them off right at the door because nowadays it's not as safe as you think it is. So, anyway, those are a couple of the stories that I wanted to share. It's part of my healing journey to speak about the things that I've dealt with in my life, and they're not all bad. They're not all bad. I am the person that I am because of my youth, because of my past, because of my upbringing, because of my determination to break that cycle. So I am who I am. And you know what? I love this person. Yeah, so I shall see you in the next video. The good Lord be with you. Take care. Namaste.